you came in and identified yourself as the leader of the Ambazonia War of Liberation. So why have you assumed this position, and who gave you the mandate to call yourself the leader of the Ambazonia War of Independence?
I have not assumed any position. It's a role I play. There are two types of leadership in liberation struggles, and I have outlined that in one of my Facebook posts. There are institutional leaders who emerge through agreement by different movements. Those are institutional leaders. There are also functional leaders, leaders who emerge based on what they do. And there is virtually no doubt that my leadership has laid the ideological foundation upon which the resistance is conducted, whether in terms of targeted diplomacy, in terms of internationalization, in terms of the strategy and tactics in self-defense. That's not something anybody can dispute. So it's not simply an assumption; it's a fact. And I hardly count that because facts are issues. Facts are issues you don't count. They simply exist. And in a very contested space like ours, you exercise patience and show humility in the way you describe yourself or your role. But I think you find somebody like Nelson Mandela, who was in jail. He did not assume, the role of the face of the South African resistance. He was simply the face by the way he upheld himself, by his sense of defiance and his desire to die for the liberation of his homeland. And that was recognized. It was contested, but there are certain immutable facts which you cannot definitely shelve. And I think it's same with the Amazonian War of liberation. You may call yourself a president. I'm president of the Amazonian Governing Council. And I think that we have virtually no president in Amazonia. You have presidents of different movements. But as far as, designing the framework for our liberation is concerned, the Amazonian Governing Council under my leadership has been able to do that. That is not undermining the contribution of, of, of others. Many people have contributed. BBC Mancho laid the foundation for defiance by, basically carrying his coffin and saying, give us independence or give us death.
When we start, calling ourselves presidents, or we let our followers call us, leader of the, the war of liberation, isn't that conflicting? Doesn't it create the kind of conflict that we see today in our war of liberation?
It does. It does. And see, if you will call yourself president and 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 ascribe to yourself the exclusive power of governance and the deployment of force, and you exercise that role, nobody's going to contest it. If we have a president that mobilizes the resources and arm our people, to defend themselves, you will not contest it. If you have a president that conducts himself or herself at the international level with respect and portraying Amazonia in a likable way, it will not be contested. If you have a president where you have to build schools and create opportunities for children, it will not be contested. But if you ascribe to yourself, the title of a president, and say you have the exclusive power and right to undertake certain things, and you neither have a strategy for the protection of our people, you neither show how you have been able to move Amazonian diplomacy to a respectable and an acceptable level. You create no opportunities in terms of education, in terms of health and the protection of our people, and then that is subject to contestation. And secondly, president of a nation, especially in situations like Amazonia, has a specific due process to acquire such a mandate. And I don't think that you can simply just sit in home and say that you are the president of a state. Liberation leaders simply eh, assume that role by virtue of what they do, by laying the ideological foundation of that resistance, and by ensuring that they are constantly driving the liberation narrative by being the pathfinders in new ideas, in innovative processes that many people follow. That does not also give you the exclusive right to dictate how things work, and others have their spaces. And it is not something that we simply assume by virtue of whatever. It is a functional role which we play. And I think that the Amazonian Governing Council playing the vanguard role of our liberation struggle has been the movement under my leadership that laid the foundation for our self-defense, targeted diplomacy, internationalization, and has been driving the liberation struggle in a way that bestows respect, hope to the Amazonian people. The way the IGK is structured, it revolves around their leader's title as president of Amazonia. And anything that seems to question and undermine that particular perception leads to what we call a lot of reactionary anger. And so, secondly, their leader is in jail and both assumes um, what I call a victimhood title and a functional role as their leader, and that keeps him in a very difficult position. Most liberation leaders who are in jail assume the role of statesmen, they rise above all political organizations and project themselves as statesmen standing for the who are a reflection of the pain and suffering of people. But when you have a political leader in jail who drives a political agenda of his movement, and then you are going to have that leader will drag himself or herself, into muddy waters that sometimes are problematic. As far as the splinter of the IG is concerned under Dr. Sako, I think I said from the beginning, they have been an agitative structure. They have faced problems on two fronts. One on the issue of legitimacy. Dr. Sako has always tried to project himself as the legitimate leader under Seseko Ayotabe, and that has led to certain policies that has affected cohesion in our struggle. That has also been true on the side of Seseko Ayotabe by driving certain foreign policy approaches that shows him as the legitimate leader of the IG, has also dragged us into certain areas that have been very problematic. So the existence of these two formations has been very problematic in our struggle. On the other hand, Dr. Sako has wanted to portray himself to the international community as the main, as the sole representative of the Amazonian aspiration. That has led them to design policies to attempt to destroy the AGOVC, destroy the image of the leader of the AGOVC, and set forces against each other. And so it has created this kind of very, very tense atmosphere that has led to the death of so many people. But this is what I would say, and I have said it from day one, that the IG should be dissolved, and all those who ascribe to themselves the title of president of our country, they must renounce those titles. For a simple reason, it has elevated them to a position where they think they are more superior to others and has made collaboration extremely very difficult. It has been very divisive. It has led to the death of thousands of our people because of the assumption of exclusive right to design policies to prosecute the war, and they have refused to coexist with others. The second issue is the current crisis within Dr. Sako's camp is an opportunity for us Amazonians to pull together. I wish no one evil. I don't scavenge on the demise of others. I think sometimes difficulties provide people with an opportunity to reassess where they are, what they have done. And I have pointed out certain times in our struggle when Seseko proclaimed independence and that led to the killings of our people. I thought it provided an opportunity for us to pull together. When Seseko was kidnapped, I thought that was also an opportunity for us to pull together. The current crisis in the IG should give us an opportunity to rethink, the foundation of, the so-called interim government, dissolve it, establish movements, and enter into frank discussions with other movements so we can work together and make 2022 a defining year for the Amazonian people.